Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by Blue Water Climate Control. Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Jesse Simonton, and Austin Price. Glad to have you along with us. Be sure and check out Blue Water Climate Control online at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com, or you can follow them on Twitter at blueh2o_climate. Glad to have you along with us on this Tuesday. Several things to get to. Let's jump right into the magical world of basketball, Rob. You look like they're done, and then they come back and they win a game against Florida that they almost gave away, but they get the win. And now in front of Tennessee tonight is Kentucky on the road, Auburn at home to finish out. Any thoughts on where this team is? Or are we just inconsistent as who they are?
I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not trying to be, to diminish, what what was a really nice win on Saturday, because it was. I mean, they played well, they deserved it, but still, I mean, we're a John Fulkerson answered prayer away from talking about them potentially closing, looking at a 4-game losing streak tonight against Kentucky. So, I mean, tough close. I mean, I don't love their chances tonight in Rupp Arena, to say the least. And they'll be playing an Auburn team that is going to have a lot on the line on Saturday in terms of playing for seeding. They're going to have Isaac Okoro back. Tennessee right now, I mean, tough to see. I mean, I think the NIT is a possibility, but it's not a guarantee by any means.
Rob's wearing his UK 2K stuff right now.
When you look at this team and you look at the NIT possibility, what I mean, and I guess again, NCAA is out unless Tennessee's going to go win the SEC tournament, which I don't think any of us are seeing. What do you think it takes for Tennessee to get into the NIT? What do you got to do?
I mean, I think they either need to win one of these two this week, and actually I think they need to win one of these two this week, and then at least win one in Nashville, maybe two. And I mean, you look around the league, Arkansas is going to, I mean, they've got a worse conference record, but I mean, they also lost 5 straight without Isaiah Joe. I think that'll be taken into account.
And their non-conference record, or their non-conference wins are better than
Tennessee's. And I mean, I think, Alabama has got the same record as Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee beat them head-to-head, but Alabama's computer numbers are better. I mean, those are 2 SEC teams just right there that, I think probably are, going to be more attractive to the NIT. And South Carolina, I don't think South Carolina's making the tournament. I mean, the big dance.
Right.
And they're going to be ahead. I mean, I would think they'd be firmly ahead of Tennessee in the NIT pecking order. So I don't think the NIT is a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, unless they beat Auburn at home and then win probably 2 in Nashville. And the second win would be a good one.
Yeah,
on Friday.
A quality one, because probably playing the number 1 seed at that
probably
point.
Probably playing Kentucky. Yeah. I mean, if things, it's a logjam right now. Tennessee's 8-8, but I mean, they could easily be the 8 seed,
right,
if kind of form holds this week, which
right,
would put them against Kentucky on Friday.
So back to this team. Did Josiah James figure something out?
Rick said that
because we played well, obviously, against Florida. I mean, 10 points, 10 of their first 20 points.
Rick feels like it's kind of health related.
Like
this is the best that he's felt all year, according to Rick. Which I don't know if that necessarily explains him from going from scoring 4 points in the previous 3 games to being one of the best players on the court on Saturday. I mean, we're huge numbers, but there are a lot of people in college basketball who can give you 12 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and very few people are going to lead their team in rebounds and assists. I mean, that's one. You can see point guards lead their team with points and assists. You can see big guys lead their team with points and rebounds. That's a pretty unique skill set when you are your team's best rebounder and best playmaker.
Well, I think he was a big catalyst as to why Tennessee's ball movement was so much better.
I don't think there's any question.
Their spacing was better, but the ball didn't get stuck in their hands going around the perimeter.
No,
at least in the first half.
First half for sure, and even the second half. I mean, they got bogged down a little bit. They still shot better than 50% from the field, and Florida really cranked up. I mean, that was a desperate back to the wall, kind of thing you saw from the Gators in the second half, where Tennessee just had to hold on. But I mean, I think that's what frustrates Rick Morris and no end, is that because I don't think Florida really played bad. I mean, I think Tennessee took it to them in that first half. I mean, really, 17 points, 11 turnovers. I think Tennessee was really well prepared, and I think that's what kind of makes Rick's head want to explode, is that they have that in them. They have that kind of game in them, but they're just all over the board.
Got better play from Vescovi, took care of the basketball, and it seemed like he was in better command of things. Was that just he played better? Is that a little bit of Josiah James helping him take a little pressure off of it?
I think that's a big deal when Josiah is engaged and productive like that to take some pressure off Santiago. I mean, guard play, but they got basically 3 guards, pretty much. I mean, Jalen Johnson's not going to come in and handle the ball. They got Vescovi, Bowden, and James. So, I mean, to have a kid that's been on your campus less than 2 months be asked to do the kinds of things that Santiago is being asked to do game in and game out, that's huge. I mean, and even you throw Josiah in there, still your 2 primary ball handlers are true freshmen. That's tough.
The other thing that seems interesting to me is, and I get where Rick Barnes was at. You got to win the game. You got to go about it. But he eliminated his bench. Yeah. He didn't shorten the bench. He eliminated the bench on Saturday, and I get the sense that tonight in Rupp Arena, you're going to see a short bench. I think that's the way he's going to play the rest of the way if they can stay out of foul trouble.
I asked him about that today, or Monday, and he kind of hem and hawed a little bit, saying that it was, that the way the game went, that's how it was. Like his assistants were pulling on his elbow, saying we need to get so and so out. We need to get so and so out. And Rick was like, nope, nope, not going to do it. So I just don't think it's sustainable. I mean, especially when you're playing a Saturday, Tuesday. I mean, you're going to have guys running out of gas.
You know what the 4 of us have in common with Tennessee's bench?
We scored the same amount of points.
We scored the same amount of points
on Saturday. So,
Pons has been doing it for 3 weeks with tendonitis in his knee. He's averaging 38 minutes a game.
Yeah, Rick's talking about how Josiah's not been healthy all year. He played him 40 minutes.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, he talks all the time about Volquest's the one we keep an eye on. That's the one that, we've got to make sure he gets his breaks. He played 36 minutes.
And played the last couple, really got away with some rough housing down low that could have fouled him out.
I think that Rick will say one thing and then do another when it comes to playing his bench. I mean, he just doesn't trust those guys at all. I mean, he doesn't trust Camlaw. He doesn't trust Plavsic. Devontae,
I think he'll give Gaines a chance defensively because of the quickness of Kentucky.
And then the first time he takes a bad shot or throws it out of bounds, you won't see him again.
It'll be a while before you see him.
But I mean, you go back a year ago. I mean, like Rick, when he got kind of late in the year, it got crunch time. I mean, he was relying on. And granted, they were different players, but I mean, the bench got way shorter a year ago.
Yeah, but still, I mean, Fulke and Pons played. I mean, way more so than Gaines or Camlaw.
Well, he was playing Lamonte Turner, too.
Yeah, and Lamonte was coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So, it was a totally
it wasn't a great bench, okay? And he didn't play Pons.
But my point is he didn't really trust those guys either. Right. He may have been playing them, but there wasn't a great deal of trust. They got yanked out after bad passes or bad shots.
But the level of trust that he had in Fulkerson and Pons last year compared to Camlaw or Plavsic is apples and oranges.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even though he didn't play those guys a ton of minutes last year, he would put him in some critical situations. I'm just not sure he's going to put anybody in.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not sure he's going to play, particularly Camlaw and Plavsic.
I just don't see that. At Rupp Arena.
Yeah, I just
if Tennessee's down 8 the first half, they're not.
I don't see him using that bench. All right, quickly to wrap up hoops. Recruiting had the big point guard, the 5-star point guard in.
Big man,
had a chance to visit with him. What's your takeaway?
I mean, he's a tremendous player. Jabari Smith, the number 5 player in 2021, and it's interesting. To be as highly regarded as he is, it's not like Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina. Those guys aren't involved. It's right now. I think Tennessee and Auburn, and he didn't say this. He's not naming favorites, but I think Tennessee and Auburn are at the top. Georgia he's an Atlanta area kid, so Georgia and Tom Crean are in there, pushing hard, and Georgia Tech's involved. But it's not like a, just crazy highfalutin recruitment right now.
Where's he play at again?
Sandy Creek.
Tyrone, Georgia. Jabari Holloway, former tight end, went to Notre Dame from Sandy Creek.
Look at Huff's pulling that out.
That was old school.
So
we were in elementary school.
Didn't Ray John Neal go to Sandy Creek?
I think he did go to Sandy Creek. I think you're absolutely right.
Think Ray John's helping him with that one?
No, but he did get that eye work done. We run that spot on the Nation every week.
So anyway, he is from there. Back to recruiting.
I think Tennessee's right in the thick of it. I mean, obviously, getting him here it was an official visit. He was here with his father. Not father played at LSU, which is back in the late 90s, which is another kind of odd wrinkle that LSU doesn't, at least right now, does not appear to be super involved. And I think he's got a really good relationship with Desmond Oliver. really likes Rick Barnes. He's a 6'9" kid that plays a lot on the perimeter, can shoot it. So, not surprisingly, Tennessee's working the Kevin Durant angle. I mean, he doesn't think he's Kevin Durant, but if you click on YouTube, you can find him. And there's some similarities there between him and a 17-year-old Kevin Durant. So, big time prospect. And I mean, Tennessee has a great recruiting class coming in. And if you look at 2021, they've had the number 2 player in the class in Paolo Banchero on campus, number 5, Jabari Smith, number 11, Kennedy Chandler, and number 16, Harrison Ingram. That's pretty stout.
Yep, certainly doing work.
At this early stage.
Yeah, we'll see how they close it out, but it's a while before that takes place. But obviously important to get those guys on campus. We'll see if they get anybody in this weekend for a noon start against Auburn to close out the regular season. We'll have more on that as to kind of whether or not anybody's going to make it in or not. We'll discuss that a little bit on Friday's podcast as well. All right, speaking of recruiting, let's jump to football recruiting. Everybody was lined up like a marathon at Sunday morning, go to sprint to get guys on campus. The dead period's been lifted. Get everybody here. Tennessee had a few in. Everybody around the conference seemed to have a few in, but it really starts to ramp up for Tennessee this week, right?
Yeah, this week's way bigger. I mean, they had a few stragglers in the Gatlinburg tournament.
Stragglers.
Over the weekend.
Demeaning Junior Colson.
No, like it wasn't like a planned deal, though. You know what I'm saying? Stop.
No, well, the weather messed it up. We had it in the war room. The fact that multiple major teams canceled
correct.
showing up because
they
didn't want guys to pull a hamstring.
That's right. I mean, you go back and the group from Alabama, the Southern Express didn't come. The group from Middle Tennessee, J3 Select did not come in. And that eliminates Turrentine, Dallin.
The California kids didn't come in.
California kids did not come in.
Which is incredible for me to even think that there's a 7-on-17 from California flying in to play a weekend in Gatlinburg of touch football.
Californians know about the peddler, Rob. They love the pancake pantry.
Space Needle?
And no, they love that mini golf up there too. Davy Crockett mini golf.
You better than the one where you ride the train up the hill?
That would be hillbilly golf for those keeping score at home. Go ahead with your recruiting.
That's like forced free sponsors. They need to get on board.
Go ahead.
Anyway,
who's coming in this weekend? What do you got?
Peyton Page.
Well, he's going to be the headliner, but you've got Travis Shaw, who's one of the top players in 2022, will be in with him. They will make the trip over together.
They're buddies, right?
Yeah, obviously Cayman Marty's coming in. He's a top 100 player on Rivals. The Wright kid, Jalen Wright, the
running back from over in
he's
Durham.
a track champion over in North Carolina.
He big
coming
enough?
in.
You think he's big enough?
Yeah, Tennessee likes him a lot.
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, kind of. He's their. He would be like what would be called the toy. I mean, like he can play all over the field.
Mecole Hardman?
Yeah, that kind of guy. Tennessee, I think they're under the impression that Isaac Washington will be back here this weekend, which would be a big deal for the Vols, considering they just lost him. If they can get him back over here quickly,
and he told Friedman that they weren't really in consideration anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Was that just a Tracy Rocker deal?
Yeah.
I mean, just a response to Rocker leaving?
Yeah. Yes, I think
getting him here would be big because it gives him a chance to sit down with Jimmy Brumbaugh and
That's
visit
right.
with Jimmy Brumbaugh, and that's what Tennessee's been trying to. That's what Tennessee's been trying to do from the moment Tracy Rocker left.
And gets him back in front of DA. I think that relationship's important too. With
Washington likes Pruitt, he likes
yeah.
DA, but he's made it clear his position coach is a big deal, and he does not know Jimmy Brumbaugh at all.
Yeah, Camaro Edwards, kid from Havelock, I think is going to be in here this weekend as well.
Heavy North Carolina.
Heavy North Carolina. I think there'll be a few kids from the state of Tennessee make it in. Virginia. Travion Henderson not going to visit this weekend. He's going to visit later in the month of March. I tell you one thing. I think Tennessee is trending the other way, and it's not anybody's fault. I just think it's kind of timing. Jay took over North Carolina on January 31st, and dead period started that weekend. Dilworth and Ritzy. Now, Dilworth went to Georgia for the first time, and Ritzy's now been twice in a month. Those are teammates out of Glenn over there in North Carolina. They seem to be trending towards Georgia at this point. Dilworth put out his commitment date, going to do something on April 17th, so the day before Tennessee's spring game. I don't know when Georgia's spring game is, but I do know that he's going to take 8 visits which started this past weekend, so now he's down to 7 between now and then. But it definitely seems like Tennessee's going to have to make up some ground if they're going to try to swing those either one of those guys, or keep them from committing someplace in the next month or two.
Yeah. So, and again, I think that's just one of those deals where you're playing a little bit of catch up. You got new guys that they're trying to get to know, new position coaches they're trying to get to know, and a new coach in a recruiting area that they're trying to get to know. So, can they get them on campus? And some quality time on campus, not just passing through.
Well,
campus.
and that's the thing is like this weekend's it's like a pseudo junior day. There's no practice, so it really is. I won't. You think of demean them earlier. It's like a car wash. I mean, you kind of run them through. I mean, like that's what these things are. I mean, they're meant to get a lot of bodies on campus, give a kid a look at you, but I mean, I think the best thing going for Tennessee is like a guy like Dilworth not coming in. Then he's going to come in. I think it's April 4th.
Where it's just him.
It's just him, maybe a teammate or two. There's not going to be 50 or 60 people here. So, like, you can watch practice. You can kind of, spend more time and quality time with the coaches. So, I think anytime you can have that happen over the next month. Travion Henderson's another perfect example of that. Get him here. Tennessee's in a really good spot with Cody Brown. They'll still have to, fight tooth and nail, but I think that the visit, last month really helped them there, and so I think he's going to do something in the summertime, and so does that mean he officially visits Tennessee sometime this spring or summer? I think it's something you'd be would bear watching. All
right, I got to ask before we start moving towards maybe talking a little
Drum
football
roll.
here.
Drum roll.
Before the start of spring practice, it's time for we got to get a little bumper music.
We
for this
do
deal.
need it.
It's time for the weekly Zach Evans update. Is Zach Evans going to? Let me start. I got multiple specific questions for you, Austin. Okay, I'm gonna throw some specific at you. One, Florida visit. Still think it's going to happen?
I think it happens as of now.
As the official visit is going to happen there. Okay, and that will be the fifth.
But that
and
won't
final
surprise me
official
if it
visit.
don't.
Right, but we think that that's going to happen.
I think it'll happen.
If he visits somewhere officially, you think it's only going to be Florida. It doesn't appear like it's anybody else, right?
I don't think it'll be anybody else.
So no Southern Cal, no Oregon, no Florida State. Looks like it's going to be Florida if he takes the fifth official visit.
Yeah, correct.
All right, I've been asking this question for 3 weeks, so I'm going to ask it again. I don't know that the answer is going to be any different, but I've asked this question. I've wondered aloud. With the dead period lifted, is there a chance he unofficially shows up at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, or at Tennessee? Do you think there's a chance he takes an unofficial visit to one or all three of those schools in and around this official visit to Florida?
I think he's going to take an unofficial visit or two. We'll see. Who kind of wins that lottery, but I think there's been enough smoke around that in the last week or so to lend myself to think that he's probably going to make his way to somebody's campus sooner rather than later.
Jesse,
Perhaps more than one.
Yeah, and if you're going to stay in it,
and read the tea leaves. It's not that far of a trip.
Breaking news.
It's not that far of a trip from Nashville.
So, but I mean, I think if you don't want Florida to get the only visit, to be the only school. So, I mean, to me, if you're Ole Miss or if you're Tennessee and you're trying to stay in this thing, you got to do everything you can to get him on your campus unofficially.
And especially with this particular prospect and the way his recruitment is unfolded, I think as much FaceTime as you can get with him kind of behooves you in terms of your chances of landing him.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying that a phone call doesn't carry some weight, but I think if you don't want to just be making phone calls or a FaceTime deal while he's in the only visit he takes in the month of March is to Florida. Because if I think that happens, I think that puts Florida in a great position because they're getting to face one-on-one, eyeball-to-eyeball conversations with him as opposed to something over a video chat or just a phone call.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one team that I'd watch out for in this whole deal is Texas A&M. Jesse's talked about that forever. I just think that.
I thought you said they were.
You were the one.
I thought you said the family's like, no, it ain't gonna
happen. The family doesn't want him around. I mean, the people around him don't want. But I'm just, the longer this thing plays out, the more you have to wonder: do they kind of get back in the mix here a little bit?
And that's the easy answer. I mean, at the end of the day.
Listen, there's been a lot of.
And he can say, hey, he can say Coach Robinson's there, who I've always liked, right?
Well, yeah.
The people around him don't necessarily want him to end up at Texas A&M, but there's been a lot of kids where, go places that either they didn't want to go or people around them didn't want them to go.
There's also been a couple folks in Texas that have sworn since day one that Zach Evans was ultimately going to sign with A&M.
Would ultimately end up being there.
The question is
that was before the stuff with Georgia and LSU, and then the merry-go-round and all that. So,
but here's my question though: how many did A&M sign? Because I don't think they took anybody that they can push forward. Rivals has them at 24.
So that they would have a spot.
24/7 has them at 26. So my point is if you sign 25 high school guys, Zach Evans already officially visited. So great, blue shirting's off the table.
Unless they could back count somebody. Unless they could have back counted somebody. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I'm just
I don't know
wondering
either.
aloud. If they're continuing to recruit him, that tells me they got room for him. Otherwise, why would you be in the middle of anything dealing with that situation if you don't have a spot for him?
I don't know. Nothing surprising.
Unless,
though.
So we'll see. My guess is they've got room for him, or they would not be messing with it and not be involved with it in any way, shape, or form. But we'll see. I think the first two questions, one, is he going to take this Florida official visit?
I think he does. I think he's close enough with Brewster that visit happens. I think that helped the Gators there.
And then the second question is, where does he show up unofficially? Because I believe he will show up somewhere. I've always felt that he was going somehow, some way he was going to end up at Ole Miss again and end up at Tennessee again before he made a final decision.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Blue Water Climate Control and what they offer in terms of a ductless air conditioning system as a smart alternative to central forced air systems. Known as a mini split heat pump, these ductless systems offer high efficiency energy savings, lower noise, personalized comfort, and advanced air filtration. They're an excellent option for remodels, room additions, finished basements, in-law suites, cabins, vacation homes, and as a supplement to existing HVAC systems. If you're building your own home, you definitely want to let Blue Water talk to you about the many benefits of a ductless system. They're very often half the price of a conventional duct system solution, and they have great warranty. So you can call Blue Water Climate Control and schedule your free consultation. You can call them at 865-299-2290. You can find out more at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com, and again, you can check them out on Twitter as well, at BlueH2O_climate. All right, let's jump to the Tennessee football team. Jesse, we've been talking about quarterbacks. You had your spring primer on the quarterback situation and how Tennessee manages this, or how will they potentially manage this. We talked about it at length in the last podcast, but specifically, if you're Jeremy Pruitt and Jim Chaney, do you look at this and you go, hey, we're going to do 2 weeks where we try to split this thing equally, and then we're going to pare it down? Do you do a week like that? I don't think it's realistic to do 15 practices where everybody's, quote, somewhat equal. When do you, if you're them, when would you pare it down? Or would you pare it down?
I would have kind of an A group and a B group.
I think you have to,
from
don't
the
you?
start. And I think
From the start?
From the start. And I think what will be most interesting to me is, and we kind of teased this last week, or we even discussed it a little bit in the Friday pod, but we're a week away from Jeremy, meeting with the media before spring practice starts next week. What does he say?
Wide open.
What is
open competition? That's going to be his phrase, in my opinion. Go ahead.
So that's going to be interesting. So if he does do that, that's obviously a 180 from how he discussed Jarrett Garantano a year ago in the offseason. We know that he was pretty adamant throughout the end of the fall, including in the bowl game, that JG was the guy he trusted the most. So how much is this? Because, AP, you and I sat down there with Harrison Bailey at a table at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge, and Harrison Bailey did not think JG was coming back to this football team last summer.
No, I think.
He didn't. Right. And that's not to say that things don't change. A lot of recruits end up changing their mind and choose different teams. But, I think Harrison envisioned coming in here and being able to play as a freshman. How realistic is that?
I think Harrison still envisions playing as a freshman.
Okay, but how realistic is that? And Brian Maurer, thought that he was good enough and did get an opportunity to play some. So I think you're going to have an A group and a B group. It's going to be difficult to feed all those mouths equally. Holiday's created buzz, so what does that mean, though, in terms of being an actual quote-unquote quarterback versus kind of a package guy?
Well, and I'll say this for Holiday: the buzz has been on his athletic
just on
ability,
his explosiveness,
right.
not on his throwing ability.
Right.
But again, he came here with the indication that he would get a fair shot.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like?
Yeah.
So it's going to be fascinating. And then I have a piece coming out tomorrow that kind of so we dove deep into the quarterbacks. Who are 5 other guys that need a big spring offensively? And I think, it starts with Darnell Wright, and then right after him, I think it's a guy like Princeton Fant because of the huge questions at tight end, and I run through some other guys.
J.J. Peterson?
Defensively,
Now or never.
J.J. Peterson's on my defensive list 100%, and 100%. That piece comes out, I think, Friday, but I think it's a huge spring for Darnell. I think it's a huge spring for Princeton Fant, Ramel Keaton. And perhaps one of the surprises on my list is I think it's gonna be a big spring for Ty Chandler.
No D'Angelo?
I think Ramel's got. I'm gonna bet on Ramel Keaton over D'Angelo Gibbs.
Well, I think it's just a big spring for any of those receivers because they have so many
For
guys
sure.
coming in.
Yeah, and I did a
Some
big
are-
piece on kind of that whole position, relatively recently. But I think individually, Ramel has a chance with another year in the weight room that he's been, the kind of flashes that he's shown. He's got a shot to kind of emerge as the guy opposite of Josh Palmer.
Well, and I think the question is going to be, how does that group earn guys' trust?
For sure.
And how do you do that when you got so many?
And that's
people
what I
involved?
delved
There's
into
a
the
lot
quarterback
of
deal.
things
When
involved. You mentioned that in the quarterback deal. You're trying to earn trust. You're trying to equal reps. And then I think Jeremy Pruitt, Rob, is going to stand in front of the media and talk about how it's a results-driven deal. The guy who's the most productive is going to be the starter.
One of his favorite catchphrases.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of his standard line when it comes to the quarterback deal. It's going to be based on production.
And I think it's
but the irony of that is that could be a completely true and earnest statement from Jeremy Pruitt, and yet the 4 of us can sit here and say, what exactly does that mean if a guy like Maurer or even Harrison Bailey is running with the third team and they're playing with third team guys and not working with guys that would put,
and that's why I think, and we won't get to see this is why there's going to be the unknowns of the quarterback deal. I think the true measurement of where the quarterback deal is who's running with who in the scrimmages.
Yeah.
Not just who's running with who in drill.
And I think
work.
it's all up to Garantano, don't you? I mean, just it's if he seizes it, if he takes, it's going to be up to him to leave the door open.
We said that last week.
I think it's up to him to slam it.
Yeah.
To slam the door
exactly.
or to open it back up. Which way does he go with it this spring? I think it starts and rides with him. I really believe that. That's not a knock on Harrison Bailey or anybody else. He's got the most experience. He's a guy that the coaching staff, has some trust in. He has not slammed the door, in my opinion, on the job for him because of his inconsistencies a year ago. But he should be the front runner. The question is, can he go out and end it this spring, or is he going to leave the door open for everybody all summer long? That's the intriguing part for JG. The other intriguing part for that position, who's going to be there to compete with them this summer after spring practice ends. That's another side of this thing that we'll certainly dive into and talk about. So coming up Wednesday, we got five offensive players to keep a close eye on that need to have a big spring. Same thing for the defense. We'll have more to get you ready for Jeremy Pruitt meeting the media next Monday, and then Tennessee goes to the practice field a week from today to start their spring practice. Speaking of going to the practice field, it wasn't the practice field. It was the NFL Combine. Lots of talk about Tennessee guys maybe not living up to the billing. What's your takeaway from what Tennessee did at the Combine? Were you surprised by anything at the Combine?
I guess Jawan's time got the most play, or created the most buzz. I was not remotely surprised he ran 4.73 at all.
No, the stiffness in the vertical would probably be a bit of a concern.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
I mean, he didn't even jump 30 inches. I think that's a bit of a concern. But his tape doesn't lie. Jawan is a guy that has an uncanny ability to not only break tackles, but to get open. I think he's going to help a team on special teams. He will still be a guy that gets drafted, I believe, somewhere between rounds 3 and 5. Callaway, I think, probably The irony is Callaway actually posted a decent time, 4.55 or something like that. He jumped pretty high. I think it was like 38 or 39 inches. And yet the takeaway, I think, when you read comments from Dan Berger at The Athletic, or even Zerline at SI and some others, it was like these traits just don't translate to his game, which is what we've been saying for a couple of years. He just disappears sometimes. He was a big play guy for Tennessee. Has great hands. They talked about his catch radius, and I think he looked pretty good. And I didn't see it, but you're reading some feedback. Looked pretty good in the drill work. But he didn't play a lot like a 4-5 guy at Tennessee. And so I think there's some concerns about that stuff not translating. DT couldn't do anything because he was hurt,
Right.
So we'll kind of see. It'll be a huge pro day here at the end of the month for him. I think it'll be a big pro day for Batuli if he wants to get drafted, because he did okay at the combine. But again, he's going to have to show that how do you move laterally? It's not so much what that 40 time is. It's the 3-cone drill and some of the other stuff. How do you move laterally? DWA had a pretty weird, he was like the second slowest tight end, I think, but then all the other traits were like actually pretty good. I mean, he was the second highest in terms of vertical jump. His 3-cone was good. And odd, just timing stuff for him. But again, I don't think his tape is going to do him a lot of favors.
I will say this: there'll be more NFL people here than there's been the last couple of years for the pro day, because I think there's more NFL people are going to go, am I missing something? You know what I'm saying? I want to go see Batuli again. I want to see Nigel Warrior, who was not at the combine.
Incredible.
I want to see, Juwan Jennings, Marquez Callaway. Am I missing something? I think that the due diligence factor is going to produce a lot of NFL guys here. Wouldn't be surprised if there's not some front office people here, a coach here. It's not going to be everybody coming to see first-round picks, but I think there's going to be some, am I missing something, to make sure I've done
and
my
I think
due
it's
diligence
because,
with
I mean,
guys.
like what Jesse was talking about, you got two kids in Juwan and Batuli who were incredibly productive
Right.
in the best conference in college football, but who don't have, don't check all the boxes in terms of measurables.
Well, and then if you're an NFL guy, don't you want to know why Nigel Warrior wasn't at the combine?
Why
You know,
a first team All SEC safety?
What are we missing here with this guy? I got to go see what that's about.
And you talk about, I think Pro Day has now become even more heightened for him, not only because he didn't get invited, but some safeties balled out. From not just the Isaiah Simmonses, who's going to go top 5, but there were the other guys that ran really well and had good showings that Nigel's going to need. He's going to have to put his best foot forward, down here at the end of March.
Yeah, I thought defensive backs and wide receivers were the group that made the most impression at the combine. Some would say you could always be that may always be the case, but I thought some receivers went really low in times. Some of them expected, and then I thought there were some DBs who showed some athletic ability to really elevate themselves up the draft board.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I thought, just from a broader perspective, I thought the running backs, what Jonathan Taylor and Swift and Cam Akers, those guys all put up some really impressive times, for guys that are 215 pounds or north of that.
Well, and running backs you're not going to take very high in the draft. I think Cam Akers is going to be a steal for somebody in the draft because I don't think he ever ran behind an offensive line that was worth anything.
Yeah,
at Florida State.
He ran a 4.47.
And
or whatever.
I think everybody's going to look at him in the NFL and go, what happened there? And they're going to look back and go, coaching staff change of offense. Bad offensive line that he played for. All right, as we close it out here, obviously we had the story over the weekend, Darrell Middleton with the off-the-field deal. If you're Jeremy Pruitt, how you handling that one?
Well, just based off of, what happened and I think you have to do your due diligence, but based off of, what was said to have transpired, I think he's at least suspended a game, if not more. You suspended Bryce Thompson. Why I would, maybe you just sit him for the first game, you don't need him anyway, so.
Yeah, I think you're going to wait and let it see how it plays out and all those things. I'm a little surprised Tennessee did not officially announce him indefinitely suspended or something to that effect out of the gate. Maybe Jeremy Coach Pruitt will address that on Monday. I'm sure he will. He'll be asked about that. But obviously not a smart decision by Darrell Middleton over the weekend, and we'll see how this one plays out with an off-season incident versus an in-season deal.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Bryce Thompson
I
deal
think I'm right
was
up against the season.
right up against the start of the season. Jeremy Banks happens in season. Sometimes that affects things, but obviously not a smart decision made by Jarrell Middleton, and something that Tennessee's not wanting to have to deal with, but is going to have to deal with that situation. And we'll see where Jeremy elects to take that through spring practice and any type of punishment, and what takes place from there. As you got time, because he's going to wait and see what happens with the charges and everything else moving forward. So an off-the-field incident there that he's dealing with. Off the field for Tennessee in a positive way, recruiting starting to crank up. Guys going to be on campus. We'll have full details of that coming up this weekend, full coverage of that. More names coming up for you in the War Room at the end of the week, as well as the podcast. We'll discuss that on Friday. The Tennessee basketball team on the road tonight in Rupp Arena, looking to surprise everyone with an upset over Kentucky. We'll see what the Volunteers with a shortened bench can get done in Rupp Arena against the Wildcats. That's going to do it for this edition of the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast. For Rob Lewis, Jesse Simonton, and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us, everybody.